the dream that started it all, and promptly got mocked into the ground. So there I was, deluded, hopeful, probably still digesting the remnants of my childhood optimism. I announced publicly, like a complete lunatic, that I wanted to open a bakery. Yes, a bakery. Not join a pyramid scheme. Not fake my own death and move to Portugal. Not sell crystals on Etsy while preaching about moon energy. No, just bake things and sell them. You'd think I said I wanted to launch a rocket from my back garden, using jam tarts and sheer arrogance. The reaction? Immediate mockery. Friends laughed like I'd declared myself the next king of England. A bakery. They snorted, like carbs were suddenly out of fashion and I'd missed the group text. One mate genuinely asked if it was a phase, like I was going through some sort of gluten-based identity crisis. Meanwhile, my family did the classic British support routine: smile, nod, and quietly send you job listings that include phrases like competitive pension scheme and corporate synergy. My mum actually printed out one for a role at an insurance firm. I just thought, something to fall back on, right? Because everyone knows the true dream is calculating risk premiums in a gray cubicle under flickering fluorescent lights. To be fair, I should have expected it. This is the same group of people who think a career must involve a lanyard and at least one Microsoft Teams induced mental breakdown per week. Anything outside that, witchcraft. But there I was, naive and overcaffeinated, telling anyone who'd listen that I wanted to make cakes for a living. And not just any cakes. Beautiful, indulgent, ruin your diet and your credit score kind of cakes. The sort of pastries that make you question your life choices, but in a good way. Apparently, that was hilarious. Honestly, the moment I said, I want to bake, they looked at me the way you'd look at someone who tells you they've decided to become a professional kazoo player. Charming, delusional, mildly concerning. In hindsight, I should have lied and said I was going into finance. People applaud that. Oh, spreadsheets. What a clever girl. Say croissants. And suddenly you're one minor inconvenience away from being called a cautionary tale. Anyway, that was the beginning. A dream, a whisk, and a support system held together with sarcasm, unsolicited advice, and deeply repressed panic. Wouldn't change it for the world, except I would constantly, while crying into a mixing bowl. Group humiliation. Now with extra icing. You know that heartwarming moment in every underdog story, where the main character shares their dream and everyone supports them. Yeah, it didn't happen. Instead, I got a front row seat to the comedy roast of my aspirations, featuring my own friends as headliners. Honestly, they should have sold tickets. Sarcastic applause every time I brought out a tray of cupcakes, like I just cured gluten intolerance. One of them even did a slow clap. A slow clap, the kind you give a toddler who's almost learned to walk, but still mostly falls over and cries. So, you're still playing shop then? Ah yes, playing like I'd set up my entire business venture using Monopoly money and the vague promise of good vibes. Bless them. One particularly smug specimen suggested I audition for Bake Off. It'd be a great exposure, he said, as if I was a loaf of sourdough, and not a human with rent to pay and dignity to cling to. Another friend and I use that term loosely now looked me dead in the eye, full of misplaced concern, and asked, "Do you have a backup plan?" I said no. They laughed. I smiled. That tight-lipped, so leaves body kind of smile you give when someone's just insulted your entire existence, but you don't have the emotional bandwidth to commit arson. In my head, I was already rehearsing my TED Talk. Follow your dreams and cut off your friends. Coming soon to a therapy session near you. It was a weird time. Everyone thought I was chasing some quaint little hobby, like knitting or taxidermy, something to keep me busy until I gave up and did something respectable, like become a dentist or die quietly. Meanwhile, I was riding a chaotic, emotional roller coaster, powered entirely by sugar, spite, and the British tendency to bottle everything up until it explodes in the form of one aggressively polite breakdown. But I digress. The point is, they didn't believe in me, and to be fair, neither did I, but I was at least trying to fake it. They just handed me metaphorical matches and said, "Let's watch her set her life on fire. It'll be fun." And that, dear viewer, was the moment I knew if I was going to fail, I'd do it dramatically covered in icing, and with a petty vengeance that would one day taste delicious. Reality slaps, politely. Eventually, I did what all dreamers do after getting emotionally pummeled by every person they've ever known. I caved to capitalism like a soggy trifle. Got myself a proper job. You know, the one: gray office, gray faces, gray souls. Excel spreadsheets as far as the eye could roll. My days consisted of replying to emails that didn't need replying to, attending meetings that could have been crimes against time, and trying to look engaged while my manager explained synergy using a pie chart that actively made me hate pie. The office had 5 people, all of whom pretended to like each other with the same brittle enthusiasm you'd find in a hostage video. Every Monday morning, we took turns lying about our weekends. Oh, just chilled, bit of Netflix, went for a walk, saw the doc, buried my dreams and screamed into a pillow. Actually, thanks for asking. Spoiler, that one was mine. I didn't say it out loud, of course. HR frowns on honesty. Lunch was a choice between sadness in Tupperware or queuing behind Jeff microwaving last night's curry like he was defusing a bomb. I found myself getting emotionally invested in the kettle. It became the highlight of my day, watching the little light flicker on, hearing the gentle rumble of the boil. It was practically a spa day if you closed your eyes and ignored everything else, which I did often. Meanwhile, my dream, you remember the bakery one, the thing I used to care about before I was swallowed by fluorescent lighting and motivational posters that said things like, "Teamwork makes the dream work." Yeah, that dream sat in the back of my mind like a Tesco sandwich that's gone a bit off. Technically still there, technically still edible, but really, who's risking it? I told myself I'd save up for it, you know, responsibly, sensibly, like an adult would. Actually happened as I spent most of my money on caffeine coping snacks and the occasional blackout purchase. I justified retail therapy. I had dreams, I also had Klarna. It wasn't that I gave up, not completely. I just pressed pause, except I lost the remote and forgot it was on pause, and woke up one day wondering why I hated literally everything. And that, dear listener, is what we in the industry call rock bottom, but with a lunch break. One breakdown: extra butter please. The day my boss reheated haddock in the office microwave was, quite frankly, the final straw. Not because of the smell, although, let's be clear, that scent could have taken down a rhino, but because it symbolized everything wrong with my life. The passive aggression, the beige carpets, the absolute audacity of a man in pleated trousers thinking fish at 9:47 a.m. is socially acceptable. I stared at that microwave, genuinely contemplating whether this was how civilizations collapsed. Fish and emails. Probably urgent. Can you action this by OD? Yes, Sandra, I can action this. Directly into the void. That's when I realized I couldn't do it anymore. I'd rather be bitten by a mildly rabid squirrel than sit through one more meeting about optimizing cross-functional touch points. I'd rather live in a bin than reply all. So I quit dramatically but with British restraint. Think less, flip the desk and more. Close the laptop with mild disdain, and walk out holding a lukewarm cup of tea like a mic drop. No plan, no savings. Just raw and filtered spite and a dream that had been collecting emotional dust in the back of my skull. And croissants, so many croissants, like medically concerning levels of butter consumption. I stress ate pastries like I was preparing for war, which in fairness I sort of was. Capitalism is violent and I chose to fight back using laminated dough. Was I terrified? Obviously, but also slightly giddy, like that manic energy you get at 3 a.m. when you decide to rearrange your entire life because you've had one thought too many and also a Red Bull. I told myself this wasn't a breakdown, it was a pivot, you know, like on LinkedIn, when someone says they've reevaluated their professional trajectory, and you just know they got fired, and cried in a car park. Only I wasn't in a car park. I was in my kitchen covered in flour, on the brink of madness, and whispering to a dough hook, like it owed me emotional stability. But somehow it felt right, or at the very least, less wrong than spending the rest of my life explaining to a 47-year-old man named Kevin why he still couldn't attach a PDF. The glorious mess that was day one. Right, so day one of living the dream. You know the bit, all those self-help books bang on about leap and the net will appear, they say. What they fail to mention is that the net is on fire, full of holes, and you're holding the matches. Starting a business, it turns out, is not this whimsical Pinterest board montage with acoustic guitar in the background. No, it's you at 2 a.m. frantically Googling how to register a food business without accidentally committing tax fraud. My logo designed in Microsoft Bloody Paint. Because I'm a visionary, clearly, it looked like it had been drawn by a caffeinated toddler with a grudge against symmetry. I told myself it was quirky, which is middle-class code for looks like a mistake, but I'm too tired to fix it. Now, the brownies, oh the brownies. I followed the recipe exactly, which is ironic considering the final result could have easily been used in construction, dense, solid, possibly illegal in some countries. My neighbor tried one out of sheer politeness and hasn't looked me in the eye since. Honestly, I don't blame her. I wouldn't either. The poor woman cracked a molar. But did I stop? Of course not, because I had grit, also a rapidly deteriorating bank account, and far too much unsold chocolate. I put them on Instagram anyway. Captioned it something absurd like, baked with love, which is true if you count despair as a form of affection. Got 12 likes. 4 were bots, 2 were my mum on different accounts, but I felt seen. And that was day one, a glorious chaotic mess of burnt edges, blind optimism, and the faint aroma of nervous sweat. But hey, nobody died, well, except my dignity that took a fatal blow and never recovered. The chaos period, a chaos every day until very recently. So there I was, the proud CEO of a bakery that technically existed, run entirely by someone who hadn't slept properly since the concept of a stable job was hurled out the window. Spoiler, that someone was me. I was everything. Marketing director, head baker, social media intern, cleaner, therapist. Mostly to myself, and fortunately, and for the low price of absolutely no salary, I got to cry into spreadsheets and scrub icing off the walls at 2 a.m. Glamorous, really. I lived on adrenaline, blind hope, and instant coffee so strong it could dissolve a spoon. Honestly, I think it started dissolving me. My sleep schedule was more of a suggestion, and my meal plan consisted entirely of things I dropped but dusted off fast enough. Social media became my new full-time anxiety trigger. I had no clue what I was doing. None zip. I just threw hashtags at the void and hope one stuck. Slay the day, posted it. Boss babe energy, regretted it instantly. Rise and grind. I was already grinding my mental state into fine powder. Every morning without fail, I'd post a perky caption while actively disassociating in my flour-covered pajamas. Influencer mode. Engaged inner monologue screaming. Apparently this is how we build a brand now, through curated breakdowns and caramel drizzle. And because nothing says I've got it together like filming a story while your oven's on fire in the background. I did that too, twice. Once while wearing a face mask. Not the skincare kind, the smoke inhalation is bad kind. But did I stop? No, because chaos was the business plan unofficially, and somehow it was working. No idea how. Might have been divine intervention, might have been the algorithm taking pity on me, or maybe people just really enjoy buying pastries from someone clearly on the brink. Either way, I powered on, because when you've bet everything on a dream and you're too stubborn to admit defeat, you'll convince yourself that waking up, crying and falling asleep in buttercream is just part of the entrepreneurial journey. The plot twist: suddenly everyone's a fan, and then, like pigeons who've just discovered chips, they all came back. The same people who once said, "Oh bless you, chasing your little dream like a toddler with a saucepan," are now in my inbox asking if I do corporate catering. Corporate catering, for the record, these are the same people who suggested I get a real job while I was scraping icing off my ceiling and crying into a mixing bowl. One girl, and I say girl generously, she's basically a human LinkedIn post, asked if I'd be interested in a joint venture. A joint venture, as if I've forgotten that she once hosted a party where she made joke cupcakes and told everyone, "This is what my name thinks she can sell." How? Hilarious. Almost as funny as her follower count. Another one applied for a job, a real one, Sent me her CV like we hadn't spent the last 5 years with her casually, negging my passion project at every brunch. I stared at the email for a good 10 minutes, like a Victorian widow staring out to sea. Then I remembered she once said, "My cupcakes were a bit dry, I can assure you." They weren't, she was. So yes, I considered hiring her briefly. Just long enough to imagine what her face would look like when I asked her to mop buttercream off the floor while teenage customers filmed her for TikTok, but alas I decided against it. I'm petty, not legally actionable. Funny, isn't it, how people suddenly become supportive once your silly little hobby starts threatening their quarterly targets. It's like watching your childhood bullies clap for you because you made it onto telly, while conveniently forgetting they used to throw your lunch in the canal. Only now they want a partner. I'm not sure whether to laugh or cry, or invoice them. But hey, success is the best revenge, and also the most expensive kind of therapy I never had time for. Living the dream, with mild indigestion. So somehow against all logic odds and nutritional advice, I now have an actual bakery, a real one with walls and lighting and a sign out front that doesn't fall off when it's windy. People queue outside like they're waiting for Beyoncé tickets, except instead of glitter and music they get overpriced pastries and the faint aroma of burnout. We sell out every single day, which sounds glamorous until you realize that also means I haven't sat down since Tuesday, and I'm being held together by caffeine and blind faith. I've got merch now, yes, merch. As in people voluntarily pay actual money to wear my logo somewhere along the way. I became a brand, God help us all. I've even hired staff, real humans with opinions and Spotify playlists and an uncanny ability to ignore empty bins. They call me boss, which is adorable, considering I'm still Googling how that works every other Thursday. And the best part, I've got an accountant now who no longer looks visibly alarmed when I hand over my receipts in a Tesco bag. Progress. As for me, I eat cake for breakfast and lunch, sometimes dinner, which yes is a cry for help, but also it's research, Susan. If I don't taste the goods, how do I know if they're emotionally satisfying enough to heal childhood trauma? Legally, I must say, I do not endorse this diet. Emotionally, I'd write a love letter. So yes, I'm technically living the dream, although no one tells you that. The dream includes 3 a.m. mental breakdowns over a missing spatula, and crying because someone said, "Your lemon drizzle was a bit much." It was a bit much, I'm not well. But here I am, somehow running a successful business, still smelling faintly of butter and desperation, and occasionally laughing in public like a Victorian ghost. Is it perfect? No. Is it chaos? Absolutely. Would I change it? I mean, yeah, probably, but we've come this far, so let's just keep pretending this was all part of the plan. Life lesson sprinkle with salt. The bit where I pretend I've learned something profound. Moral of the story: honestly, don't take advice from people who think following your passion is something you do after 6 p.m. and only if it's low risk, high yield, and doesn't involve gluten. They mocked my dream. They called it unrealistic, childish, and profitable, all words that in hindsight sound suspiciously like I lack imagination and basic decency. So what did I do? Well, I built it anyway, brick by bloody burnt out brick. I cried, I cursed, I probably traumatized several rolling pins, and then I sold those same naysayers cupcakes at £4.50 a pop, each one lovingly topped with a swirl of smug satisfaction and a sprinkle of passive aggression. Yes, Sharon, that's a told you so tart you're eating. Hope it tastes like regret. I went from being the joke to being the competition. From oh bless her, she's still baking too. We're losing market share to that sarcastic woman with the cinnamon buns. Imagine the sheer joy of watching someone who once told you to be realistic ask if you're open to partnerships. I said I was emotionally unavailable. That is, and here's the real kicker, I did it all while smelling like butter, sweat, and late-stage capitalism. Did I lose sleep? Absolutely. Did I gain respect? Sure, but mainly from anxious millennials and local pensioners who think my lemon drizzle can cure ailments. Did it make me whole? Oh God, no, but it did make me a bit dangerous. And honestly, in this economy, That's better. So yeah, that's the lesson. If they mock your dream, make it so big they have to book a reservation to sit in it. Sell them tea and trauma. Smile sweetly while charging extra for oat milk. Let them taste exactly how petty victory feels. One overpriced croissant at a time. Cheers, you cynical legends. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to queue out the door. A staff member crying in the stockroom, and a tray of existential dread muffins in the oven, all part of the dream.